My son was supposed to sign the papers that would make him a partner at Hargrove and Associates. I was ironing his lucky shirt in the kitchen when my housekeeper Rosa knocked on the doorframe and said very quietly, "Ms. Eleanor, don't go upstairs yet." I looked up. Rosa had been with our family for 19 years. She had held my hand at my husband Gerald's funeral. She had cried harder than most of our relatives. She was not a dramatic woman. She did not say things she didn't mean. So when I saw the look on her face, not panic but something heavier, something careful, I set the iron down. "What is it?" She glanced toward the staircase. My son Daniel was still in the shower. I could hear the water running through the ceiling. "I need you to come with me," she said, but quietly, "and please, don't say anything until I show you." I followed her through the side hallway, out the back door, and into the yard. The morning was cool for September. The oak tree near the fence was just beginning to turn. Gerald had planted that tree the year Daniel was born. I remember thinking, standing there in the early light, how strange it was that a tree could outlive the person who loved it most. Rosa led me to her car, which was parked along the side of the house. She opened the back door and pointed to the seat. On it was a manila folder, the kind you'd see in any office. Nothing special about it from the outside. "I found this in Miss Diane's bag this morning," Rosa said. "I wasn't snooping. The bag fell. Everything spilled. And I saw." She stopped, pressed her lips together. "Just open it." I opened it. The first thing I saw was a photograph. A wedding photograph. Not recent, the colors were slightly faded, the way digital photos look when they've been printed and left in a drawer for a few years. In the photo, a woman in a white dress was laughing at the camera, bouquet raised. Standing beside her, a man in a dark suit, holding her waist. The woman was Diane. My son's fiancée Diane, who had told us she'd never been married, who had sat at my kitchen table 8 months ago eating pot roast and saying, with that easy smile of hers, "I've always believed in waiting for the right one." Who had looked my son in the eye and said it. I turned to the next page. A marriage certificate. Diane Lee Calloway and a man named Preston Wolfe, married June 14th, 3 years ago, in Savannah, Georgia. I turned to the next page. A child's birth certificate. A daughter. Born the following year. Father, Preston Wolfe. Mother, Diane Lee Calloway Wolfe. I stood there in the cool September morning with that folder in my hands, and I felt the ground do something strange beneath my feet. Not move exactly. More like it just stopped being something I could trust. "Does she know you found this?" I asked. "No," Rosa said. She was on the phone in the living room. I put everything back in the bag exactly the way it was. "She doesn't know." "Does Daniel know any of this?" Rosa shook her head slowly. I closed the folder. I held it against my chest. Inside the house, I could hear the shower shut off. In 45 minutes, my son would come downstairs in his lucky shirt, pick up Diane from her apartment, and drive to the offices of Hargrove and Associates, where he was about to sign a partnership agreement that would bind his name and his finances to a woman who had lied to him about who she was. I had 45 minutes. I want to be honest with you about something. My first instinct was not noble. My first instinct was to walk back inside that house, go upstairs, knock on my son's door, hand him the folder, and let him handle it. He was 34 years old. He was not a child. Part of me, the part that had learned the hard way over 63 years of living, that telling people what they don't want to hear almost always costs you something. That part wanted to hand it off and step back. But then I thought about Gerald. Gerald used to say that the most dangerous lies are the comfortable ones, the ones that feel easier to live with than the truth. He said he learned that from his own father, who had stayed in a bad business partnership for 12 years because confronting it felt like too much and lost everything because of it. Daniel had his father's same tendency, to want things to be okay, to sand down the edges of problems until they felt manageable. It was one of his best qualities and one of his most dangerous ones. And I knew in the way only a mother can know, that if I handed him that folder right now, before the signing, he would find a way to explain it. He would call Diane. She would have an answer ready. She always had an answer ready, and he would choose to believe her because today was supposed to be a good day and believing her was easier. I needed more than a folder. I went back inside and I called my friend Carolyn, who had worked in family law for 30 years before retiring. She answered on the second ring because Carolyn always answered on the second ring. I need to ask you something and I need you to be straight with me, I said. Eleanor, she said. Good morning to you too. If a woman is legally married in Georgia and she gets engaged to someone else without divorcing her first husband, what is that? Silence. That's bigamy, Carolyn said. That's a felony in Georgia and in most other states. What if she moves to another state? Does that matter? Doesn't matter. The first marriage follows her. What if she uses a slightly different version of her name? Eleanor. Carolyn's voice shifted. What is happening? I told her. All of it, in the short version, standing in my own kitchen while I listened for Daniel's footsteps on the stairs. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Do you have the documents in front of you? Yes. Marriage certificate, birth certificate, photo? Yes. Okay. Don't confront her alone. Don't let Daniel sign anything today. And before you do anything else, make a copy of everything in that folder. I photographed every page with my phone. Then I put the folder exactly where Rosa had shown me and I went upstairs and I knocked on my son's door and I said his name. And when he opened it, freshly shaved, tie already on, looking so much like his father. It hurt to look at him directly. I said, I need 1 hour before you leave. Can you give me that? He looked at his watch. Mom, I can't be late. 1 hour, Daniel. Something in my voice must have reached him. He looked at me for a moment, really looked, the way he used to when he was small and trying to figure out whether I was serious. Then he said, okay, 1 hour. I sat him down at the kitchen table. I put my phone in front of him. I let him scroll through the photographs without saying a word. He went through them once. Then he went through them again. I watched his face the way I had watched it for 34 years. Through ear infections and first heartbreaks and the night we got the call about his father. And I watched him do what I had feared he would do. I watched him start to reach for an explanation. This could be a different Diane Calloway, he said. Look at the photograph, sweetheart. He looked. He put the phone down on the table. She could have changed her name back, he said. She might not have used Wolf legally, Daniel. Maybe the divorce just hasn't Daniel. I said it the second time the way Gerald used to say things when there was nothing left to argue about. Not loud. Just solid. There is a child. A little girl. Do you know about a little girl? He didn't answer, which was its own answer. What came next was not a scene. I want to be clear about that because I have heard people describe these kinds of moments as screaming, as throwing things, as the dramatic breaking apart of a life in real time. That is not what happened at my kitchen table that morning. What happened was quiet. My son sat with his hands flat on the table and he breathed, in and out, for a long time. And I sat across from him and I didn't say anything because there was nothing to say that the silence wasn't already saying better. Finally, he picked up his phone. He called Diane. She answered on the first ring. Hey, I'm almost ready. Just give me. Did you know that Rosa dropped her bag this morning? He said. The pause that followed was less than 2 seconds long, but I heard it. I had been listening for it. What? Her voice didn't change much. I'll give her that. She was very good. I need you to come here, Daniel said. Before we go anywhere, I need you to come here first. Another pause. Is everything okay? Just come here, Diane. He hung up. He looked at me. His eyes were dry, but there was something behind them that I recognized. Not grief yet, not quite, but the place you go right before it. The place where you're still holding everything together by deciding not to look at it directly. You knew this morning, he said. Yes, you could have called me right away. Yes. Why didn't you? I thought about how to say it. Because I needed you to see it, not hear it. There's a difference. He nodded. He didn't say anything else. We waited. Diane arrived 22 minutes later. She walked in through the front door the way she always did, like she belonged there, like the house was already half hers, which I suppose she had planned on it being eventually. She was wearing a blue blazer and her hair was down, and she looked, as she always looked, like someone who had decided a long time ago that confidence was the best armor. She stopped when she saw both of us at the table. Her eyes went to the phone in Daniel's hand. "Diane," Daniel said. He turned the phone around and held up the photograph. "Who is Preston Wolf?" The armor held for about 4 seconds. Then something behind it shifted. Not collapsed, she was too controlled for that, but shifted, recalculated. "Daniel, I can explain. Are you married to him?" "It's complicated. Are you legally married to Preston Wolf right now, at this moment, yes or no?" She looked at me. I don't know what she was looking for. Permission maybe, or some kind of ally, or just somewhere to direct the pressure of that moment. I looked back at her without giving her anything. "We were separated," she said. "We've been separated for over a year. The divorce is in process." "I didn't think it was relevant because you have a daughter," Daniel said. "A daughter you never told me about," and that was the one thing she couldn't spin. I watched her realize it. The marriage, the name, the legal status. All of those she might have been able to work around, given time, given his willingness to want to believe her. But the child was different. The child was a fact. She had looked him in the face and erased from her own story, month after month, for 8 months. "Her name is Lily," Diane said after a long moment. Her voice had changed. Some of the performance had gone out of it. "She's 2. She lives with Preston. She stopped. Started again. "I left them both. I know what that sounds like. I left because Preston was." She stopped again. Shook her head. "I'm not here to judge what you left," Daniel said. "I'm asking you why you lied to me. Because I knew you'd look at me differently. You were right." The room went very quiet. "I want to tell you something about that moment, about what it cost my son to say those 3 words. He is not a cruel person. He has never been a person who wanted to hurt anyone. What it cost him to look at a woman he had planned to build his life with and say you were right. I could see it in the way he held himself, in the careful stillness of his hands on the table. He was paying for it even as he said it. But he said it. Carolyn arrived at my house at 11 o'clock with a colleague of hers, a woman named Patricia, who handled family law and had a very calm manner and a very direct way of speaking. Daniel had already called his attorney by then. Diane had not left. She was sitting on a living room, and I believe, that some part of her was relieved. The way people are sometimes relieved when a thing they've been holding up for a long time finally comes down. Patricia explained to Diane, clearly and without cruelty, what her legal situation was. The partnership signing was postponed. The engagement was without ceremony or drama, simply over. Not with a ring thrown across a room. Not with shouting. Just with the quiet acknowledgement that the thing it had been built on wasn't real. The question of Lily took longer. I'll tell you the truth, that was the part that stayed with me. The marriage, the deception, those were Diane's choices, and they had consequences, and I did not lose sleep over them. But a 2-year-old girl in Savannah, Georgia, who had nothing to do with any of this. I thought about her. I asked Diane before she left whether Lily was safe, whether Preston was a good father. She looked at me with an expression I had not seen on her face before, something unguarded, something that might have been the closest thing to genuine I'd seen from her. "He's a better parent than I was," she said. "That's why I left her with him." I don't know what to do with that. I've turned it over in my mind many times since. A woman who knew her own limits, a woman who made terrible choices and one honest one. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for her. I'm not sure I do, but I think about Lily sometimes. I hope someone is reading to her at night. That evening, Daniel and I sat on the back porch where the oak tree was, the one Gerald planted. The sun was going down behind the fence and the leaves were turning, and it was, despite everything, a beautiful evening. My son had a glass of iced tea in his hands and he was looking at the tree and not saying anything, and I let him not say anything for a long time. Finally, he said, "I feel stupid. Don't. I missed it for 8 months, Mom." She was very careful. "I should have, Daniel." I used the voice, the solid one. "You loved someone you believed was who she said she was. That is not stupidity. That is just being a person." He was quiet again. How did Rosa know to look? He asked. She didn't know to look. The bag fell. He nodded slowly. Lucky bag. Very lucky bag. He almost smiled. Not quite, but almost. I reached over and put my hand over his. His hands were large, like his father's. Gerald had carpenter's hands, even though he'd worked in insurance his whole life. Daniel had inherited them without the explanation. The partnership, he said, I'll reschedule. It'll be fine. It will. And the other thing. He didn't say her name. I'll be okay. I know you will. You're not going to tell me I told you so? I looked at him. I never thought any such thing. He did smile then. Briefly, tiredly, but it was real. We sat there until the sun was all the way down and the yard went dark and the oak tree was just a shape against the evening sky. A tree Gerald had planted that was still standing, that had kept standing through everything, through 31 years of marriage, through loss, through a morning when the ground stopped being trustworthy and then became trustworthy again. I thought about calling Carolyn to thank her. I thought about Rosa, who had already gone home for the day and who I owed more than I could reasonably express with words or money, though I intended to try. I thought about the fact that my son was sitting next to me unhurt, not unbruised. There's a difference, but unhurt, still whole, still here. And I thought the way you think things when you're 63 and you buried a husband and raised a son and learned, slowly and at considerable cost, that the truth is almost never easy and almost always worth it. I thought this is what love looks like when it's not performing. Not the flowers, not the easy mornings, not the clean happiness of a day when everything goes right. This. Sitting in the dark. Telling the hard thing. Staying. If you're listening to this and you have a child you're worried about, a son, a daughter, someone you'd carry through anything if you could, I want to say this to you directly. Trust what you see. Don't talk yourself out of it because it's inconvenient. Don't wait for someone else to act. The people we love are worth the uncomfortable conversation. They are worth the risk of being wrong. And if you're right, if you're sitting across from your child and watching them face the truth of something, hold on. Stay in the room. Don't hand it off and step back. Stay. That's all. That's the whole lesson. That's the thing 34 years of motherhood taught me that nothing else could. Stay. If this story reached you, if some part of it felt familiar, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're new here, welcome. There are many more stories where this one came from. Stories about family, about truth, about the kind of love that doesn't look away. I'll see you in the next one.